The studio lights felt unforgiving, bleaching every expression and magnifying every breath. Barron Trump sat angled slightly away from the desk, long frame folded into a chair that suddenly seemed too small. He had arrived composed, almost distant, answering earlier questions with careful politeness, eyes flicking to the host and back to the camera as if he'd rehearsed the rhythm of it all. The audience had been calm then, murmuring approval at safe answers, clapping on cue. But the temperature changed the moment the conversation drifted from abstract politics to the people who lived inside its shadow. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She leaned forward just enough to signal intention, hands resting flat on the desk, posture steady. She spoke about accountability, about how power doesn't exist in isolation, about how families connected to political machines often benefit from silence just as much as they suffer from scrutiny. Her words were measured, deliberate, each sentence landing with the weight of something carefully considered. She talked about media narratives, about how certain names become shields while others become targets, about how the public is taught who deserves privacy and who doesn't. Barron's jaw tightened. At first, it was subtle, just a small shift, a muscle flexing as he stared ahead. His fingers, once calmly interlocked, separated, one hand tapping lightly against the arm of his chair. The camera caught it all, zooming in just a second longer than necessary. When Jasmine mentioned the unspoken protections extended to powerful families, the audience stirred. A low hum rippled through the seats, that unmistakable sound of people sensing a moment forming in real time. She clarified that she wasn't attacking individuals, but examining systems. She spoke about children growing up under expectations they never asked for, about how being adjacent to power can be both a privilege and a prison. Then she said it, the line that changed everything. She suggested that some families leverage outrage strategically, turning criticism into fuel, controversy into currency. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Barron let out a short laugh, sudden and brittle, cutting through the quiet like glass. Heads turned. The host glanced at him, surprised. Barron leaned forward now, mirroring Jasmine's posture but without her calm. He asked, pointedly, why his family was being turned into an example on live television. His voice was controlled, but the edge was unmistakable. He spoke faster than before, each word stacked tightly against the next, as if he were trying to outrun the implication before it fully formed. The host attempted a soft interruption, reminding everyone of the broader topic, but Barron waved it off with a small, sharp gesture. He said there was a difference between analysis and provocation, between accountability and spectacle. The audience reacted instantly, some clapped, others gasped, a few voices overlapping in scattered reactions. The control room hesitated, unsure whether to cut away or let the exchange unfold. Jasmine didn't interrupt him. She waited, eyes steady, expression unreadable. When he finished, she responded calmly, saying that discomfort often signals proximity to truth, and that public families don't get to choose when conversations about power exclude them. She emphasized that scrutiny wasn't an attack, it was a consequence. Her tone remained even, almost gentle, which only seemed to inflame the moment further. Barron shifted in his seat, shoulders squaring, color rising in his face. He spoke again, louder this time, insisting that there were lines that shouldn't be crossed, especially when those lines involved relatives who never signed up to be symbols. His voice overlapped hers for a brief second, creating a jarring clash of sound that made the audience collectively inhale. The host raised a hand, trying to regain control, but the red light on the main camera stayed on. Somewhere off stage, a producer gestured frantically, counting down to a commercial break that suddenly felt desperately needed. The tension was no longer just intellectual, it was emotional, raw, spilling past the edges of the discussion. Barron's foot bounced rapidly now, his composure visibly cracking as he demanded respect, not just for himself, but for his family name. Applause erupted from one side of the audience while the other side fell into stunned silence. Jasmine responded with one final sentence before the break, her voice clear and unwavering. Respect, she said, is strongest when it survives honest examination. The words landed like a final card on the table. The screen faded to black a heartbeat later, but the energy in the room didn't fade with it. If anything, it intensified, buzzing beneath the surface, waiting for the cameras to come back on. When the cameras flickered back on, the applause sign flashed, but the audience hesitated, unsure which side of the moment they were meant to affirm. The host's smile was tight, professional, the kind perfected through years of live television crises. He thanked viewers for sticking through the break and attempted to reset the tone, summarizing the discussion in safer, broader terms. But the reset didn't land. The tension lingered, thick and unmistakable, like heat trapped under glass. Barron sat back down more stiffly than before, his earlier restlessness replaced by something heavier. His shoulders were squared, his hands flat on his thighs, as if grounding himself. He took a breath that was clearly meant to steady him, then spoke before the host could finish. His voice was quieter now, but no less intense. He said he understood criticism, even scrutiny, but what he couldn't accept was the implication that his family's reactions to the media were calculated performances rather than human responses. He spoke about growing up with cameras, about learning early that silence could be twisted and words weaponized. For the first time, the edge in his tone softened into something raw. The room listened. Even the cameras seemed to pull back, giving him space. He admitted that anger came easily when your name carried assumptions into every room before you did. He said he wasn't defending power structures or political legacies, he was defending the idea that not every reaction was strategy, not every moment a chess move. A few heads in the audience nodded. A few clapped softly, uncertain but sympathetic. Jasmine waited until he finished, then responded with the same composure she'd maintained all along. She acknowledged the weight of growing up under a microscope and said she didn't doubt the emotional toll. But she returned, carefully, to her original point, that personal pain and public consequence often collide in political families, whether anyone wants them to or not. She said intention didn't erase impact, and that understanding systems didn't require denying individual humanity. Her words weren't sharp this time, they were deliberate, almost reflective. Barron shook his head slowly, a tight smile flickering and disappearing just as quickly. He leaned forward again, and the restraint finally gave way. He accused the show of framing the conversation for conflict, of knowing exactly which lines would provoke which reactions. He gestured toward the cameras, toward the audience, toward the invisible machinery behind the set. "This is what you want," he said, voice rising again. A moment, a clip, something that travels better than the truth. The host tried to interject, reminding everyone of time, of structure, of civility, but Barron was already standing. The movement was sudden enough to draw a collective gasp. He said he came to talk, not to be dissected as an example. He said he wouldn't sit there while his family was reduced to a talking point designed to trend by morning. His words spilled out faster now, frustration overtaking precision. Jasmine remained seated, hands folded, eyes lifted toward him. She didn't interrupt. When she finally spoke, it was just one sentence, delivered calmly into the silence he left behind. Walking away doesn't stop the conversation, it just changes who controls it. The line landed hard. You could feel it ripple through the studio, through the audience, through the control room where producers exchanged uneasy looks. The host stood as well, placing himself physically between them, thanking both guests and announcing the end of the segment. The applause sign lit up again, brighter this time, urging a reaction where none came naturally. Barron took a step back, breathing hard, then turned and walked off stage, past the curtain and into the dim corridor beyond the lights. The camera followed him for half a second too long before cutting back. Online, the moment exploded instantly. Clips were uploaded, slowed down, captioned, reframed. Some praised Barron for pushing back, for refusing to be boxed into a narrative. Others hailed Jasmine's composure, her refusal to retreat from an uncomfortable truth. Hashtags formed, sides hardened, opinions multiplied faster than facts could keep up. Backstage, Barron paused near an exit door, hands braced against the wall as he exhaled. The noise of the studio was muffled here, distant and unreal. A producer approached, offering water, offering platitudes, but Barron waved them off. He straightened, nodded once, and left without another word. On set, Jasmine gathered her notes, thanked the crew quietly, and adjusted her jacket before stepping off her mark. She knew the conversation would outlive the broadcast, reshaped and replayed in ways she couldn't control. But she also knew why she'd said what she said. As the lights dimmed and the audience filtered out, the echo of the exchange lingered, not as a single viral moment, but as a reminder that live television doesn't just reveal opinions. Sometimes, it exposes the fault lines beneath them.